The Adventures of Tom Sawyer by Mark Twain. Preface. Most of the adventures recorded in this book really occurred. One or two were experiences of my own. The rest those of boys who were schoolmates of mine. Huck Finn is drawn from life. Tom Sawyer also, but not from an individual. He is a combination of the characteristics of three boys whom I knew, and therefore belonged to the composite order of the architecture. The old superstitions touched upon were all prevalent among children and slaves in the West at the period of this story. That is to say, 30 or 40 years ago. Although my book is intended mainly for entertainment of boys and girls, I hope it will not be shunned by men and women on that account. For part of my plan has been to try to please remind adults of what they once were themselves, and how they felt and thought and talked, and what queer enterprises they sometimes engaged in. The author, Hartford, 1876. Chapter 1. Tom. No answer. Tom. No answer. What's gone with that boy, I wonder, you Tom? No answer. Old lady pulled her spectacles down and looked over them about the room. Then she put them up and looked out under them. She seldom or never looked through them or small a thing as a boy. They were her state pair, the pride for her heart, and were built for style, not service. She could have seen through a pair of stolets just as well. She looked perplexed for a moment, and then said, not fiercely, but still loud enough for furniture to hear, "Well, I'll laugh if I get hold of you, Al." She did not finish, for by this time she was bending down and punching under the bed with the broom. I never did the beat of that boy. And so she needed breath to punctuate the punches with. She resurrected nothing but the cat. She went to the open door and stood in it and looked out among the tomato vines and Jimson's weeds that constituted the garden. No, Tom. So she lifted her voice at an angle calculated for distance and shouted, "You, Tom!" There was a slight noise behind her, and she turned just in time to seize a small boy by the leg of his roundabout and arrest his flight. "There, I made a sort of closet. What you been doing in there?" "Nothing." "Nothing? Look at your hands and look at your mouth. What is that truck?" "I don't know, Aunt." "Well, I know it's a gem. That's what it is. 40 times I've said if you didn't let the gem alone, I'd skin you. Hand me that switch." The switch hovered in the air. The peril was desperate. "My! Look behind you, Aunt." The old lady whirled around and snatched her skirts out of danger. The lad fled on the instant, scrambled up the high board fence, and disappeared over it. His Aunt Polly surprised a moment, and then broke into a gentle laugh. "Hang the boy! Can't I never learn anything? He played me trick enough like that for me to looking out for him by this time. But old fool is the biggest fool there is. Can't learn an old dog new tricks, as the saying is. But my goodness, he never plays them alike. 2 days, and how is a body to know what's coming? He appears to know just how long he can torment me before I get my dander up. And he knew, if he can make out to put me off for a minute or make me laugh, it's all down again. I can hit him a lick. I ain't my duty by that boy, and that's the Lord's trust, goodness know. Spare the rod and spare the child, as the good book says. I am laying up sin and suffering us both, I know. He's a fool of old scratch, but loves me. He's my own dead sister's boys, poor thing, and I ain't got the heart to lash him somehow. Every time I let him off, my consciousness does hurt me so, and every time I hit him, my old heart most breaks. Well, man is born of woman, is of few days of full of trouble, as the scripture says, and I reckons it's so. He'll hook you this evening. I'll just be obliged make him work tomorrow to punish him. It might be hard to make him work Saturday, when it's old boy is having holiday, but he hates work more than he hates anything else, and I got to do some of my duty by him, or I'll be ruination of the child. Tom play hooky and had very good time. He got back home barely in season to help Jim, the small colored boy, saw the next day's wood and split the kindling before supper. At least he was there in time to tell his adventure to Jim, while the Jim 3/4 of the work. Tom's younger brother, or rather half-brother, Sid, was already through with this part of the work, picking up chips, for he was a quiet boy, and he had no adventurous, troublesome way. While Tom was eating his supper and stealing sugar as opportunity offered, Aunt Polly asked him questions that were full of guile and very deep, for she wanted to trap him into damaging revealments like many other simple-hearted souls. It was her pet vanity to believe she was endowed with talent for dark and mysterious diplomacy, and she loved to contemplate her most transparent devices as marvels of love cunning, said she. Tom, it was middling warm in school, weren't it? Yes'm. Powerful warm, weren't it? Yes'm. Didn't you want to go to in a swimming, Tom? A bit of scare shot through Tom, a touch of uncomfortable suspicions. He searched Aunt Polly's face, but it told him nothing, so he said, "No, well, not very much." The old lady reached out her hand and felt Tom's shirt and said, "But you ain't too warm now, though." And it fluttered her to reflect that she had discovered that the shirt was dry without anybody knowing that that was what she was in her mind. But in spite of her, no knew where the wind lay now. So he forestalled what might be the next move. Some of us pumped on our heads. Mine's damp yet. See, Aunt Polly was vexed to think she was overlooked that a bit of circumstantial evidence and missed a trick. Then she had a new inspiration. Tom, you didn't have to undo your shirt collar where I sewed it. To pump down your head, did you? Unbutton your jacket. Trouble vanished out of Tom's face. He opened his jacket. His shirt collar was securely sewed. Bother. Well, go along with you. I made sure you played hooky and been a swimming, but forgive you, Tom. You kind of cinch cat, as the saying is. Better than you look this time. She was half sorry her sagacience had miscarried, and half glad that Tom had stumbled into obedient conduct for once. But Sydney said, "Well no, if I didn't think you sewed his collar with white thread, but it's black." I did sew it with white, Tom." But Tom did not wait for the rest. As he went out at the door, he said, "Sida, I'll lick you for that." In a safe place, Tom examined two large needles which were thrust into the lapels of his jacket, and he had threads bound about them. One needle carried white thread, and the other black. He said, "She never noticed if it hadn't been for Sid. Confound it. Sometimes she saw it with white, sometimes she saw it with black. I wish the Jiminy she'd stick to one or t'other. I can't keep run of them. But I bet I'll lamb Sid for that. I'll learn him." He was not the model boy of the village. He knew the model boy very well though, and loathed him. In 2 minutes, or even less, he had forgotten all his troubles. Not because his troubles were one whit less heavy or bitter to him than a man's are to a man, because a new and powerful interest bore them down and drove them out of his mind for the time, just as man's misfortunes are forgotten in the excitements of new enterprises. This new interest was valued novelty in whistling, which he had just acquired from a Negro, and he was suffering to practice it undisturbed. It consisted in peculiar bird-like tone, a sort of liquid warble, produced by touching the tongue to the roof of the mouth at short intervals in the midst of the music. The reader probably remembers how to do it, if he has ever been a boy. Diligence and attention soon give him the knack of it, and he strode down the street with his mouth full of harmony and his soul full of gratitude. He felt much as an astronomer feels who has discovered a new planet. No doubt, as far as strong, deep, unalloyed pleasure is concerned, the advantage was the boy, not the astronomer. The summer evenings were long. It was not dark yet. Presently, Tom checked his whistle. A stranger was before him, a boy a shade larger than himself. A newcomer of any age, either sex, was an impressive curiosity in the poor little shabby village of St. Petersburg. This boy was well dressed too, well dressed on weekday. This was simply astounding. His cap was dainty, his cloth-buttoned blue-cloth round bonds was new and natty, and so were his pantaloons. He had shoes on, and it was only Friday. He even wore a necktie, a bright bit of ribbon. He had a stifled air about him that ate into Tom's vitals. The more Tom stared at this splendid marvel, the higher he turned up his nose at his finery, and the shabbier and shabbier his own outfit seemed to him to grow. Neither boy spoke. If one moved, other moved, but only sideways in a circle. They kept face to face and eye to eye all the time. Finally Tom said, "I can lick you. I'd like to see you try it." "Well, I can do it." "No, you can't either." "Yes, I can." "No, you can't." "I can." You can't. Can't. An uncomfortable pause. Then Tom said, "Well, what is your name? Tisn't any of your business, maybe." "Well, I'll make it my business." "Well, why don't you? If you say much, I will." Much. There now. "Oh, you think you are mighty smart, don't you? I could lick you with one hand tied behind me if I want." "Well, why don't you do it? You say you can do it." "Well, I will if you fool me." "Oh yes, I've seen whole families in the same fix." "Smarty, you think you are some, now don't you?" "Oh, what a hat." "You can love that hat if you don't like it. I dare you to knock it off. And anybody that'll take a dare will suck eggs." "You're a liar. You're another. You're a fighting liar and doesn't take it up. Oh, take a walk. Say if you give me a much more of cess, I'll take a bounce and rock off on your head." "Oh, of course you will." "Well, I will." "Well, why don't you do it then? What do you keep saying you will for? Why don't you do it?" "It because you're afraid." "I ain't afraid." "You are." "I ain't." "You are." Another pause, and more eyeing and sidling around each other. Presently they were shoulder to shoulder. Tom said, "Get away from here. Go away yourself." "I won't." "I won't either." So they stood, each other with foot placed at angle as a brace, and both showing with might and main, and glowering at each other with hate. But neither could get an advantage. After struggling till both were hot and flushed, each relaxed his strain with watchful caution, and Tom said, "You're a coward and a pup. I'll tell my big brother on you, and he can thrash you with his little finger, and I'll make him do it too." "What do I care for your big brother? I've got a big brother that's bigger than he is. What is more, he can throw him over that fence too." Both brothers were imaginary. "That's a lie." "You are saying so, don't make it so." Tom drew a line in the dust with his big toe and said, "I dare you to step over that, and I'll lick you till you can stand up. Anybody that'll take a dare will steal sheep." The new boy stepped over promptly and said, "Now you said you'd do it. Now let's see you do it. You don't crow me now, you better look out." "By jingo, for 2 cents I will do it." The new boy took two broad coppers out of his pocket and held them out with derision. Tom struck them to the ground. In an instant, both boys were rolling and tumbling in the dirt, gripped together like cats, and for a space of a minute they tugged and tore each other's hair and clothes, punched and scratched each other's nose, and covered themselves with dust and glory. Presently the confusion took form, and through the fog of battle Tom appeared, seated astride the new boy, and pounding him with his fists. "Hold enough," said he. The boy only struggled to free himself. He was crying, mainly from rage. "Hold enough," and the pounding went on. At last the stranger got out some muttered enough, and Tom let him up and said, "Now that'll learn you. Better look out who you are fooling with next time." The new boy went off brushing the dust from his cloth, sobbing, snuffling, and occasionally looking back and shaking his head, threatening what he would do to Tom the next time he caught him out. Which Tom responded with cheer, and started off in high feather, and as soon as his back was turned the new boy snatched up a stone, threw it and hit him between the shoulders, and then turned tail and ran like an antelope. Tom chased the traitor home, and thus found out where he lived. He then held a position at the gate for some time, daring the enemy to come outside, but the enemy only made faces at him through the window and declined. At last the enemy mother appeared and called Tom a bad, vicious, vulgar child and ordered him away. So he went away, but he said he loved to lay for that boy. He got home pretty late that night, and when he climbed cautiously in at the window, he uncovered an ambuscade in the person of his aunt. And when she saw the state his clothes were in her resolution to turn his Saturday holiday into captivity at hard labor become adamant in its firmness. Chapter 2. Saturday morning was come, and all the summer world was bright and fresh and brimming with life. There was a song in every heart, and if heart was young, the music issued at the lip. There was a cheer in every face and spring in every step. The locust trees were in bloom, and the fragrance of blossoms filled the air. Cardiff Hill, beyond the village and above it, was green with vegetation, and it lay just far enough away to seem a delectable land, dreamy, reposeful, and inviting. Tom appeared on the sidewalk with a bucket of whitewash and a long-handled brush. He surveyed the fence, and no gladness left him and a deep melancholy settled down upon his spirit. 30 yards of board fence, 9 feet high. Life to him seemed hollow, an existence but a burden. Sighing, he gripped his brush and passed it along the topmost plank, repeated the operation, did it again. Compare the insignificant whitewashed trick with the far-reaching continents on unwhitewashed fence, and sat down on a tree box discouraged. Jim came skipping out at the gate with a tin pail and singing Buffalo Gals. Bringing water from the town pump had always been hateful work in Tom's eyes before, but now did not strike him so. He remembered that there was a company at the pump. White, mulatto, and Negro boys and girls were always there waiting their turn, resting, trading playthings, quarreling, fighting, skylarking. And he remembered that although the pump was only 150 yards off, Jim never got back with a bucket of water under an hour. And even that somebody generally had to go after him, Tom said. Hey Jim, I'll fetch the water if you'll whitewash some. Jim shook his head and said, Can't, Master Tom. Old Mrs. She told me I gotta go and get this water and not stop fooling around with anybody. She says she spake Master Tom going to ask me to whitewash, and so she told me go along and tend to my own business. She lowed, she tend to the whitewashing. Oh, never you mind what she said, Jim. That's the way he always talks. Give me the bucket. I won't be gone only a minute. She won't never know. Oh, I doesn't, Master Tom. All she misses take and tear the head offen me. Deed she would. She never lick anybody. Whack him over the head with her thimble. And who cares for that? I like to know. She talks awful, but talk don't hurt. Anyway, it don't if she don't cry. Jim, I'll give you a marvel. I'll give you a white alley. Jim began to waver. White alley, Jim. And it's bully tow. My, that's a mighty gay marvel, I tell you. But Master Tom, I powerful afraid all misses. And besides, if you will, I'll show you my sword too. Jim was only human. This attraction was too much for him. He put down his pail, took the white alley and bent.